Do you hear Yanny or Laurel? Experts have credited this perception difference to the frequency or the speed of a vibration that determines the pitch of a sound in which each name is verbalized. In this audio clip, Yanny is spoken in a higher frequency than Laurel. Depending on which frequency the brain processes more readily will determine which word we hear first. Instances like this can shed light to the extensive research focusing on auditory cues like frequency and their role in communication in the animal kingdom. Researchers at the University of Minnesota explore this topic in gray tree frogs, where they work to uncover how these frogs utilize frequency in detecting, recognizing, and discriminating sounds between other frog species.
This paper was co-written by Dr. Vivek Nityanand, who was a postdoctoral researcher at the University of Minnesota from 2009 to 2010, and by Dr. Mark B., who is a current professor here as well and teaches in the Ecology, Evolution, and Behavior Department of the College of Biological Sciences. Dr. B. also runs the Animal Communication Laboratory located within Gortner that studies Cope's gray tree frog. This lab's mission is to understand both how and why animals use acoustic signals, like frog calls, to convey information to other individuals in biologically important situations, such as social and reproductive interactions. University of Minnesota undergraduates interested in animal behavior, sensory biology, or neurophysiology can contribute to ongoing research in the lab each summer when frog pairs are collected during their mating season to study what components of a mating call make it attractive.
Frogs utilize a specialized membranous organ on the surface of their heads that transmit vibrational signals from the environment into the inner ear of the frog and prevents water and other particles from entering the inner ear, called the tympanum. In order to produce their calls, male frogs take a deep breath, close their mouth and nostrils, and push the air through the vocal cords from the mouth to the lungs and back into the vocal sac, which amplifies the sound. At one time, dozens or even hundreds of male frogs could be creating a chorus of song ranging from 80 to 90 decibels each, which is about the loudness of a garbage disposal, to attract a female mate. If there are multiple species present, females will have to figure out who the correct mate is and find him. The frog species used in this research, the Cope's gray tree frog, has a high-pitched, quick, trilled call. How will they pick out each other in a pond full of other species of frogs? This research aimed to find out how the differences in the frequency of the calls, measured by frequency separation, help the frogs find their mates. Frequency is the speed of the vibration, and it determines the pitch of the sound, and it is measured as the number of wave cycles that occur in 1 second.
Experiments were conducted between May 15th and July 1st in 2008 and 2010 and used females collected in amplexus from local wetlands around the Twin Cities. These females were housed in the lab at 2 degrees Celsius to delay egg deposition until they were tested. This was done to maintain reproductive behavior and responsiveness to male calls. At least 30 minutes prior to testing, the subjects were placed in an incubator to warm them up. Once testing was finished, the subjects would be returned to their habitat. Experiments were conducted in a soundproof chamber and within a circular arena with walls that were visually opaque but acoustically transparent. The pre-recorded and lab-made calls were played using 2 speakers that were outside different parts of the arena. In all experiments, the positions of the speakers were varied around the arena in tests of different subjects to eliminate any possibility of a directional response bias. To begin a trial, a single female was placed in a small, acoustically transparent cage at the central release point in the arena. Subjects were initially positioned with random orientation relative to speaker locations and could freely move inside the cage. A trial began with a 1-minute silent period for acclimation followed by 45 seconds of the call while the female remained in a cage, after which they were remotely released from outside the chamber while the call continued to play. Females were given 5 minutes to respond by making contact with the arena while in a designated area near the speaker broadcasting a call. This video being shown shows the general procedure of conducting a trial. Females were presented with a pulsed target sound that simulated an attractive male call in the presence of a continuous stream of distractor pulses that simulated an overlapping unattractive call from another species. They found that when the change in frequency between the target and distractor call was small, females exhibited low levels of responsiveness, indicating a failure to recognize the target as an attractive signal when the distractor had a similar frequency. Subjects became increasingly more responsive to the target as the change in frequency between their own species call and the distractor species call increased. These results support the conclusion that great tree frogs can exploit frequency separation as a cue to segregate concurrent voices in noisy social environments. Seen here is the acoustic scene of a mid-species breeding chorus and the vast variety of frequencies of these frogs found within the same habitat as Cope's gray tree frog.
Vocal communication in crowds is not only a problem for humans, but for the animal kingdom as well. This research shows that frogs have adapted to communicating in large frog populations by using frequency separations to segregate vocalizations. Picking out voices in a crowd is useful for frogs and humans in order to identify individuals and communicate with others. We use the same techniques to identify people in crowds and perceive speech in noisy situations. This is important for humans, of course, but also for frogs for reproduction purposes. For successful reproduction in frog choruses, it is required that females detect and recognize male mating calls, as the livelihood of the frog population depends on it. If females cannot differentiate between species, reproduction is near impossible. In order to understand how frog species reproduce and grow in populations, this kind of research is crucial and very important.